live, Pierre. Can you hear me? I don't know if Pierre can hear me. Good morning, Hockey Nation.
I heard you. It's just I didn't hear the music was loud in the back.
Oh, sorry. You must have been playing on the side. So
Not a problem because we are back at the Hockey Nation Live Show. This is your co-host directly for the Sunshine State. It's maybe not sunshine right now, but we have bring the sun in the side of the room today. It's Coach Frenchie back in the house, and we have to go all the way to what? Texas?
Still in Texas, be in New York soon.
Texas, Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, or maybe Dallas Star, depending which sport you like, or the Mavericks, possible also there. We have to find a co-host, Mr. Michael Devellano.
Good morning, Pierre. It is NHL entry draft day. It's when everybody's dreams come true.
Yeah, this is a big day in hockey. I think with sadness, I have to tell you, it's sad because usually we are at the NHL draft. Before me, my experience started in 2015, and every year I'm there. And unfortunately, for the last 2 years, since the last time we went there, Michael, it was in 2019. It was in Dallas, in Vancouver. That's the last time we won. Saw each other over there, and since that, the next was supposed to be in Montreal, if you remember that. And unfortunately, with COVID last year, 2020, it was canceled. And I think it's the first time in the history in NHL, Michael, now is to have a draft inside of 9 months.
So crazy.
So, that's what we are.
Yeah, that is very true. It's definitely a weird time. I'm not sure if it'll ever end. So today, couple things that we wanted to touch on. I don't know. I did a little bit of a video last night. Nicola, his first here today, and he was first there last night after you had already done a bunch of time. I think Nicola's like always on for hockey, man. He's always ready to go. So we know tonight is the NHL entry draft. This is where players that are 2000, I guess we're drafting 2003s mainly. However, we know that if you're born after September 15th, you have to go the whole next year in the draft. And this year's draft features a lot of 2002 birth years. So guys that are kind of 19, not 18.
Yeah. So you have it fun between 2002 to 2003 is really the birth year. Right now, the NHL is going to draft this year.
So for the entry draft, a lot of the top guys this year, it's a weird year because I don't think there's one franchise type player that's obvious. If there is, it would be a dark horse. In other years, we've had guys like Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Connor McDavid. Like a lot of times you're looking for what they call a generational talent. And first off is I don't see that. I don't see anybody that's a kind of a game changer for any of the teams.
Yeah, it would be the first time I believe we would not have any players make the NHL since a long time ago.
Right?
So it would be really interesting because those, I think some of them are ready to play NHL. I don't say they cannot. It's just they all take the direction to go to college and say, hey, Michigan and some of the best of the player on the draft. And it's okay that way. And most of them did not play a lot of game, right? So that's another disadvantage they don't have. So not many play 40, 50, 60, or maybe 80 game like usually they are supposed to play.
25.
And, some really did not play 8 games or something like that. So it's really crazy when you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, some of them left their normal junior leagues to go to other countries where things were open. So like you even see Owen Powers, you see Mason MacTavish, they played in other places just to keep playing because there was no hockey.
Yeah, or they left is it Coronato where he left the OHL to play USHL?
Yep.
Yeah, but some player left the UHL or or the WHL or QM. They went to USHL. It's happened and some left to play in overseas to play a couple of games, and sometimes some one day Michael to play only 8 games because they got stopped after that.
It's so crazy. Yep. Well, I think a couple things will happen. One, There'll be players that scouts we were wrong about. There's players where, and it might be going in two ways. One is we say this guy's not that good, and then you're going to see him play a full season this year, hopefully, and you're like, wow, I wish I'd known this guy was that impactful. And so there might be someone that emerges like that. The other is we think someone's real good and we're ranking them, say, top 10, and then they're not that good and they don't make the NHL maybe ever. So I think both those things are amplified this year because we just haven't seen anybody. And you're making, your best guess assumptions based upon what you've seen in the past 2 years.
Yeah, definitely going to have a lot of surprise compare like
So,
many years ago because of that situation. Or you're going to have some players get drafted earlier, what you not expect. Somebody was supposed to be earlier, they got now late. So a lot of really, really what I'm looking for, honestly, also is a couple of trade going happening because a lot of rumors going on right now. So it'll be interesting.
So what I thought we'd do, first of all, I do want to touch on the trade yesterday that kind of surprised us a little bit. And the one trade, to see if it comes up here, is the trade that Steve Yzerman made to get Andrei Nedeljkovic. And I did a little video on this, but what was your take on this deal last night?
After you listen to everybody, everything like that, the Carolina fixed an amount for him. So they don't want to give him the money he's looking for because for Carolina he did well during the playoff, but not overall. They feel like he for the money he will request after he played only few game in NHL. Honestly, he was a rookie. He went to on the waiver list like 3 times at the end of the day, right? Or a couple of times, whatever it is.
Right, yeah.
So they thought they cannot give him $3 million. They was on the range about 1.2 to $2 million, and they have a disagreement between them and the agent. So you know what? We'll let you go. That's what happening there. They got the veteran Jonathan Beniers. The rumor is going to negotiate his stay now in Carolina.
Good.
I'm all the same thing. I think Beniers will be a 2 years a 2-3 years contract at 2.5, maybe $2 million. They get a veterans there. I would take the spot at and they still have Reimer there. Mrechek is over there also, and they are looking around in the UFA. So it's not about only him right now. It's like this is a trade. They look bad maybe at the end of the day, but they have to sign Hamilton. They have to sign Martinuk. They have to sign Shnevnikov. It's the big name over there. Then after that, Fogel is another one you have to sign over there as a RFA. Like the UFA, they have Jake Bain, and also both of him is on the trade block for them. It's a Detroit have nothing to lose on that one over there. Honestly, Beniers was not coming back.
Right.
They get a rookie, 25 years old, been to the bottom at the bottom. Learn to play, not play, but winning at the East Coast Hockey League or the American Hockey League. And the sadness about this, they make him who he is today after many, many years for Carolina. Right? Like he was like 5 years in the organization, example, right? So they grow him, and then suddenly they leave like that. It's just questionable about why. But maybe the plan A, or you have another plan we don't know yet. So sometimes we have to wait what happened and again see what happening. But it's a little bit surprised because he took what? I made the trade online, and 10 minutes later we got another. I got another notification. He signed already a contract 2 years. So.
Well, I think Detroit obviously knew what he was looking for. Carolina told him, said, if you get this guy. So first off, Bernier has been great in Detroit. Bernier showed when you have middle to above average goaltending, the difference between that and what Detroit's been suffering with for a long time. Bernier would steal games that, they would win games they didn't deserve. From a certain point in the season over, they were a 500 team, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. Thomas Greiss, they finally figured out a way to win for this guy, and he played very solid as well. So I would have had no problem with Bernier coming back, even though he's 32. He's been terrific in Detroit. For Carolina, I think Bernier might actually be an upgrade over Mrazek and Reimer. And, his body of work is obviously much larger than Nedeljkovic. Like Nedeljkovic played 23 games last year, and that was his breakout year. 1.9 is goals against average, and 0.932 is nothing to sneeze at, but it could be an anomaly. Like Carolina plays a very specific system, and if you look at the goaltender numbers, they're consistent across them. So the other team I see that with Pierre, New York Islanders. And you go, well, why do these goalies have the same save percentage, and why do these goalies have the same, almost roughly the same record? There's an element of it that says give them these shots and not these. So I think they're both very strategic in that way. But I think for the Red Wings, this gives them something they don't have. It's a young goalie. He's proven he can play in the NHL. Does that mean he's a franchise goalie? I don't think so. He's like a 6 foot tall goalie. He's got guts. He battles. But I think it remains to be seen whether this is the guy that leads them to the playoffs or leads them to the promised land. We'll find out. Like, he's shown he can do a certain amount for sure. Will he be able to do that in Detroit, where they don't have such a stacked D and stacked forward unit?
Yep. No, definitely.
I do want to say hello to the people that are in the chat, by the way. So Nicola, as usual, is first. So bonjour, Nicola. Caden Jenkins, thank you for joining us. Our good friend Adam Berger's here. Michael Rosenblatt was here early. So thank you, Michael. We had some other people show up, including Yarmo and Greg. Greg said good morning, and he said salut as well. Brad Marchand's son, thank you also for the $1.99 donation. We really appreciate that. Brad Marchand's son says Andre Case is going to be traded tonight. Is there some sort of a deal? Like, he's a capable player, but he doesn't really fit real well into a lot of places. Like, he's not like consistent. He's had injury problems, and I don't mind him, but he's not like an obvious guy that you would worry about normally, right?
Yeah, and he never been the players because for injuries, right? He got traded for the first round pick. Never been the way. I think that trade was not doing well for the Boston Bruins overall, but he's still young, right? He's not like 30 years old. He's still young. You have something you can do about that, but you cannot get back a lot because he did not do well for the last 2 years in NHL.
Yeah, he's 25. He'll be 26 in November, so he's still got some room. He's shown he can play. He's a pretty talented guy if he can stay healthy. And then there was another question from our friend. Where'd he go? Bud the Monkey's here, and he said he's excited for the draft tonight. Someone asked if there's any. Oh, it was Brad. Brad said, are there any Europeans in the top 5? And the answer is absolutely. I mean, whether they get picked in the top 5 is another matter, but you're going to see guys like William Eklund, Simon Edvinsson will definitely be potentially top 5 picks. I'm trying to think of who else might be European in that realm. Wallstead could be 6, I think, as high as 6, unless someone really goes off the board. But those are kind of the better Europeans. Fabian Lysell is moving up, but I don't think he'll crack the top 10, to be honest with you. So those are kind of the guys. The guy that is moving up here is this Fedor Svechkov. He plays for Togliatti in the VHL, which is like the Russian second or junior league, right? And he's moving up, but I don't think he's going to be a top 10 or 15 pick even. Yarmo, is something up for Ristolainen? It's a really good question. I mean, they've been talking about trading this guy for a long time. You would think that Buffalo at some point would pull the trigger on that. Interesting. Craig Smith, he doesn't fit well with Boston because of Craig Smith being better. That's a good point, Brad. So I think Andre Case has a hard time getting ice time because Craig Smith's a very talented player and an NHL veteran, and he can play center or wing. And I don't know. Is there some rumor about Ristolainen I'm not aware of?
Yeah, he's really on the trade bait by the Buffalo Sabres. It was a couple of teams, Winnipeg, Montreal, Nashville now was looking about, they take information about him, but it's a lot of money, $5 million for the kids, and he did not do well. His minus is multiplied by 3 times all the time. Is a Buffalo style, every time that's still a right D. Young players, but the money come with, and I'm not sure it's the right fit. They're going to ask a little bit more, and I think it's not the right things to do. I think for me, I would not touch him.
Oh my God. If This would be terrible, in my opinion, if he went to Edmonton. It's more of what they don't need. It's like you move out an Adam Larson, who's your shutdown D, and then you give more money or relatively similar money to Ristolainen, who's just such a defensive liability.
The situation with Edmonton right now, they try to get back at Dyson Barry.
Yeah.
And the way now they not what is living is like they get the Tyson Barry clan try to get one more year more at what they want to get. So what they offering from the Edmonton Oilers. So they try to get a 4 or 5 years. I don't know if Edmonton is willing to do it. We talk about $4 to $5 million per year, where I think I think for $20 million, I think it would be all right. But I don't know if it's. I think I think Barry won
Or
or
Tyson, right?
division won more like $22 to $25 million.
I mean, the thing on paper about him is he's a 15 goal, 55 point defenseman. There's not many of those. And you could see that it really helped Edmonton on the power play, but 5-on-5, he's not a helpful player. Like it kind of negates what he does in the power play a lot of cases. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Real crazy. Gemmell Smith, we know this is his brother is in Detroit, which is Giovanni. Gemmell signed a 2-year, 2-way contract extension, so that is good. This is interesting. It's not hockey related, but the Cleveland Indians are changing their name next season to the Cleveland Guardians. Any reaction to that?
Not for me.
So Carolina is interesting for sure. They have a very, I believe Carolina runs a lot of their team by this advanced analytics method that is maybe even above other teams. And I think that's been a big key to their success. So when they look at a guy like Andrei Nedeljkovic, they have a way of evaluating him that maybe the rest of us don't. And they're pegging his value. And if you go outside that, they don't get emotionally attached to these assets. That's the way to look at them. They look at them as assets. And I think that's the same. It's not that their coach doesn't create a great culture and environment. And I think not that they don't, because they think they have, like they've done an amazing job, but in the end, they're not going to overpay for anybody, in their opinion. So I think that's just the way it's going to work. Good morning, Eagle. Thank you for joining us. Hockey is going to surpass Major League Baseball. I don't know about that, Eagle. So right now, if you look at the number of fans in sports in the United States, the number one sport is football. NFL football specifically is 130 million football fans. The number two sport, Pierre, is esports. And that's about 110 million. So it's really interesting how gaming and watching other people play games and even participating in that, like Twitch stuff, is the number two sport. The number three sport is baseball. And baseball is about estimated to be between 95 and 105 million. So that's how many fans they have. And then you drop down to basketball, which is like 60 to 70, I think is the number. And then you got hockey. And hockey is like 45 to 50 million. So there's a long way to go. I don't think hockey will ever be the national sport in the United States. They're producing a lot of players, and there's 600,000 players in the United States now that play the game at different levels. Some of that's men's league, and that's the same as in Canada now. So those numbers match up for the first time ever. But as a percentage of population, it's very small, Pierre. I just don't see it being the most popular. And then Major League Soccer, I think, is actually growing probably faster than hockey. But it's still way out there. It's still off. There's lots of room. All right, so let's take a look at the next thing that we had planned here. By the way, today is an interesting day for Detroit because Stevie Yzerman's had two crazy trades in the last like 4 or 5 months. One was the Anthony Mantha deal that went to Washington, and he got Jakob Vrana, who looks like he's better than Mantha already and definitely a better fit in Detroit. And then he picked up Richard Panik, who he subsequently flipped to the New York Islanders as part of the Nick Leddy trade. So now he's like so far, and he's moved a second pick that they got from Edmonton in the Athanasiou trade. So basically, so far, he's now got Nick Leddy, Jakob Vrana, and a first-round pick for Anthony Mantha. And now he moves out. What was the draft pick he moved for Nedeljkovic? He moved Bernier. Was it a third-round pick? Might have been a third-round pick. So I think no matter what, like his moves have been really, incrementally, I think, make the team better. And so today is going to be interesting because that first round draft pick from Washington will be part of their picks today. So it'll be interesting to see who they get late in the first round. Good morning, Stefan Manberg has joined us. Where do you see, and hi, Stefan, how are you doing? All the way from Sweden. Where do you see Alec Martinez going? I don't know. I think a lot of teams would like Martinez. He's more of like a third, fourth defenseman, though, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? He's like a $3 million, $4 million D?
Well, he's 34 years old. He still have one of his best year in NHL this year. He scored 9 goals this year. That's just pretty amazing for him. He carried on a contract about 3.5. I believe like between, because he's 34, that's the problem he got. It's not like he's young anymore. So at 3 years, at $4 million, you have to, if you want to give him $4 million, you have to drop years. If you want to get, I would be really bad if you gave a 4-4. So if you want to go at 4, you have to give him $3 million. If you want to go, so you don't try to get more at $12 million for the kind of players. You have a lot of players at that type like him, and would be interesting. And the reason why he's going to happening right now is like he's on the second. I would say like you have like the phase 1 players, elite players, average players, and the third one, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I don't know how I can explain this to you on the UFA. He's on the second one. So you have to see a team looking for defenseman example, but they're going to maybe looking for David Savard first, Ryan Sutter first, Doug Hamilton first, Tyson Barrie after that. And then after that, he's going to be a little bit the next one where he's going to be. So you have to sit, wait, and whatever where you have an open spot, it will go there. So for me, not more at $12 million will be for about Alec Martinez, where he did very well, but he was at the right share in Vegas.
Yep, and this might be his last contract. I mean, he's 34. He could be 37 or 38 at the end of this.
Yep.
So you might even blow the last year of that, and you got to go into that knowing that because
the second thing happening right now also is like when you're watching a lot of people talking is many players now does not want to play in Canada. So because of the COVID situation, the rules they have in Canada every time that and the family, there's a problem. So now you're going to have maybe players not going to sign with Montreal, Toronto, whatever they are, because of the COVID situation over there. That's another factor. Because I'll be honest with you, I would see him in Winnipeg.
I mean, I just don't see him going there, though. He's American. He's
but
played
again, it's because the situation with that part over there, he would not get there. Now, Vegas have no tax. He have a very good year. I think for me, he will return in Vegas at lower money. I would not be surprised to give him a 2-year contract at $3 million.
Yep. And if you think about it, that would not be terrible for him. Like that might be a smart bet. He's already won cups with LA, but you think about it, he's from Michigan, and the 2 places he's played, Los Angeles and Las Vegas. I can't see him going to a cold place like Winnipeg, especially not when things are so expensive and shut down there.
Now, if ever Ryan Sutter don't go to Boston,
Ryan Sutter,
I wouldn't be surprised he's swinging in Boston.
I mean, he would be a fit on so many teams. And if he went to Boston, that would be such a good fit for him. But, you know, he fits in so many places, Pierre. Like, if you're looking for a guy that would take 2 or 3 million because he's mad and he wants to win, and you're trying to stuff him in under a team that's got a lot of cap, like, go get Ryan Sutter. He's going to have probably 30 phone calls. Did you talk about the NHL break for the Winter Olympics? We have not. I don't know if this is on the table. If they figured out if they're I think they said
yesterday was the release. We had a big program last time. We talked about this during the show, Power Play, where we talk about the big schedule. Yesterday was released by NHL. They go all the way, and NHL make a 30-minute show last night about that one, where it was big about this. And you know, they make the schedule with the stop of the couple of weeks in February. And the play in Beijing for the Olympics for the NHL. So that's the schedule is built right now. The, the negotiation is still on between the NHL PA and the NHL and the Olympics about that. But if they make a schedule like this right now, um, I'm pretty sure 90% they were going to go at the Olympics in February. That's
Yeah.
the reason the schedule now done all the way in April 29 about that one there. So you can check on social media. A lot of team they show like the full schedule on one page. It was pretty amazing to see that. Um, but again, Arizona is the most difficult, the worst difficult schedule they have is because of traveling in between that. About that.
Eagle Fang says the grades for the Kraken's first draft, and I think you're referencing the expansion draft. If you were to give them a grade A, B, C, with all the pluses or minuses, what would you rate it, Pierre?
I would give them a B minus.
Yeah, that might be object. I think a B minus or a C plus to me is pretty reasonable. I don't think I'm blown away by it. I understand the logic, and they've got a lot of room to make other moves. I'm not confident they will make other moves just based on who the GM is. Like, he's not aggressive, like he's conservative, right? For sure, short term, they could have been better on the ice, but I think short term, they're very good on paper as far as the salary cap combined with some depth. Maybe that was their objective, right? They're going to give young guys chance, but I don't think this is like a home run for them.
Well, you don't build a team for short term in hockey. You build a team a long term when you start a program like that, and you go with this, and then you add exactly. They are the same situation and better right now what it was Vegas in 2017.
I think the difference between them is Vegas doesn't agree with you about building for the long term. Every single year is now. And you see that because they've traded away every single draft pick from that pick, except for Nick Hague, which is interesting. But they've traded away some really good players. What's funny, though, Pierre, is how many of those four guys are contributing in the NHL now? And you think of Nick Suzuki, Brandstrom, Cody Glass, and then there was one other pick they traded away. But they're all gone, first of all. But they have other assets in their place. So they're very aggressive. That's what I mean. Like, I think Ron Francis will be the type, he'll draft players and he'll keep them and develop them. And that'll just take a long time. I don't see him wheeling and dealing.
But again, like Vegas, same thing they did. They had when you look at the choice they did the day when they did the expansion. Their team was not better at what they have right now. Seattle, the team overall was the only thing they got at the beginning was Marc-André Fleury, Marchessault.
Yep. Well, I mean, even that is it's a good thought. You're right, because Marchessault was coming off 30 goals. I think I was surprised that he was exposed. Hi, Raphael. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us. Where are you from, Raphael? It's from Quebec, or is today's draft just the first round? Yes, tonight's draft will just be the first round. There is an expectation in Vegas with the organization and the fan base. We have the toughest fan base, I believe. Interesting. Yeah, maybe because it's newer. I think it's a little bit transient and not a traditional hockey market. So I can see that where they expect to win every year. The way that a lot of teams win, Pierre, is they build prospects, they develop them, and they have a pipe of them. And then over time, they're riding the careers of that group. And I just don't see that in Vegas. I don't know about you. I think they loaded up on what they've got. He wheeled and dealed assets that were for the future. That's kind of worked out for them really well. And he's made aggressive moves like Peter Angelo and Robin Lehner and other guys like that. Even Martinez. And I just don't think that'll ever stop. I mean,
well, you don't have a lot of players since the beginning of the originally team at the beginning. You have Fleury, Alex Stock. You have Marchessault, Riley Smith, William Carlson.
So let's see. What were the picks? So the players they picked, actually, this is an interesting discussion now that I think about it. I meant to look at this. So let's take a quick look at it. just as comparison. We should probably do this side by side at some point. But you can see this is the list of players they picked from that draft. Interesting, Johnny Merrill was in that. And then Cody Eakin was part of that. So you can see they got Calvin Pickard, hasn't really played for them, moved on several times. Lucas Biza, I don't even think he's in the NHL anymore, is he?
Yeah, he's
is he?
Yeah.
Nashville. Is he in Nashville, really? Timo Pulkkinen, not in the NHL, went to the KHL, didn't really pan out. Johnny Merrill, he played the last year in Detroit and then was moved to Montreal. William Carrier still playing for them. So that's like the one guy. Cody Eakin had a good year with them, and he's played the last season in Buffalo. Nosek is still with them. We know Marchessault is a really important part of them, but he's getting up there now. He's kind of getting old if you think about it. McNabb's an important part. Connor Brickley's never played. Chris Thorburn was just, that's a weird pick, actually. Bellemare has played with them. Jason Garrison's retired. This was a weird one. Berube never played. James Neal's moved on, but he played, 1 year there? I think he played 1 year maybe, right? Derek Engelland retired. Leipzig's he was in the KHL. I don't know. He's might be in some trouble right now. Colin Miller's where? Is he in Buffalo? I think he might be in Buffalo, right? Is this the same? Yeah, Buffalo Sabres. Mark Mathot is retired. Schlemko is retired. David Perron, important player for St. Louis and was part of another deal. Oscar Lindberg, he's in the KHL, isn't he? Yeah. This guy never turned out again. Emelin, oh my God, look, they picked Alexei Emelin, Pierre. Stoner gone, right? Eric Halla playing with another team. Carlson has really panned out, and I think was the big surprise of this group. Van Riemsdyk, Marc-Andre Fleury you mentioned, and then Nate Schmidt was part of a really strong roster, but now is in Vancouver, and his replacement is Alex Pietrangelo. So you're probably right. Like, you look at this group and you're not blown away by it, right? And if you compare that, you might be right. The picks by Seattle might be better or similar. You've got Chris Driedger, you've got Vanacek in net, so that's pretty good. Neither of them is Fleury, but they're both pretty comparable goalies right now. Do we think Giordano will stick? Because he would probably be better than any of the D they just selected in that draft. And then on forward, you got Eberle and you got Gourde. So I don't know. I think you're probably right, Pierre. They probably did a pretty good job in this draft overall. Maybe we're not giving them their due. Hi, Caden and Raphael again. Kaylee, thank you for joining us. You're going to Kingsburg, New Jersey. The KHL is not good. The KHL, Caden, is definitely very different. There's a lot of guys that are AHL caliber playing in the KHL. They play on the bigger ice surface. It's a very different game. But there's some very good hockey players there too, right? All right. Well, I thought that would be kind of interesting just comparing it. We're at 10:35. Let's do this. Let's share back and just talk about, first of all, I think we are all consensus that it seems obvious that we're going to get Owen Powers the first pick. The second pick, there seems to be a consensus of Matt Beniers, but do you think that someone will yeah, you're right, Armo. Timo Pulkkinen is not a good skater. He can really shoot the puck, but he's not a good skater. Do you think that someone could sneak up like a Luke Hughes or a Mason MacTavish? Because we've seen Carolina kind of march to their own drummer. Is it possible they pass on Beniers thinking he doesn't have the upside of, say, MacTavish or Luke Hughes? Or someone else, maybe?
If you follow everything right now, like the discussion between them, it will be between William Eglin and also Matthew Beniers. So I don't know which one they're going to select. But I think they will stay for what I believe would Beniers for them.
So the William Eklund discussion is interesting, and I would be curious to see. He's a small player. In some ways, he's comparable to a Lucas Raymond, maybe not as heavy, like he's not as thick on it, of a player, but he's very talented. He can shoot the puck, maybe better than Lucas Raymond. He's a good playmaker and he's a good skater. So, but I don't know. I don't project him personally as a centerman in the NHL. I'm not sure what you're thinking.
About who?
William Eklund.
He played both positions right now. He is maybe one of the best IQ in this draft pick. If you think about those players, everything like that,
Yep.
um, and also he's not like the best skater, best on this draft, but
No.
overall he have a good sense of hockey, IQ, good skill. He can score at some
Right.
level. Um, when he come in NHL, it's harder to play as a center. So I will expect him to start as a winger, and then after that we will move up to the center if the team is going to get him. But he played an elbow position, and great year this year for sure for him.
Yeah, I think, and he's buddies with Holtz, so it'd be interesting to see if we're not going to talk about New Jersey necessarily right now, but let's say he doesn't get picked at second, they go to Benner. Let's say Anaheim picks a MacTavish or a Hughes or a Dylan Gunther. It'll be curious to see if New Jersey passes on Alexander Holtz's best friend in order to take Luke Hughes, which is Jack Hughes' brother.
No, if Hughes is open, he go to New Jersey.
That's what I would assume as well. The $1 million question is, will Minnesota part ways with Kaprizov? I don't think so. I think there's a deal to be made there. I don't know if we're hearing much rumblings, Pierre. Like, have you heard much since the initial discussions?
And nothing. We did not hear anything about
It's
that
been quiet.
situation this week. At least for the, you know, about that. It's it's this expansion draft, and now you talk about the NHL draft. So people are really more focusing on those situations today.
Adam brings up, and sorry, it's kind of covering your face, just to interject, that they're going to buy out Tony DeAngelo. It doesn't seem like anybody wants him. I don't think this is right, though. I think the cap charge is much higher than 383.
No, he's right about that. It was mentioned early this morning around 7 o'clock about that. It was the news about they would buy out him, and he would be back in NHL very soon.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So has he just been like, he didn't, he had that argument and the fight in the dressing room, and that's the extent of it, which is not unusual. Like, for that to come out is kind of wacky, right? If that's the extent of the problem, was it was a conflict in the dressing room, because the impression is that there's some other terrible thing about him.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about William Eklund, he's only 5'10", right? And
Right, he's small.
170. He have a good year, 40 game last season, 23 point. He, like I said, his main strength is smart and creativity, high scoring potential, everything like that. But you have a smaller frame, so that would be something you have to develop for sure. You know what he remind me? Remind me a little bit what Victor Edvinsson was.
Maybe, but I will say one thing. Arvidsson's body type is more like Lucas Raymond. Like, Lucas Raymond is not tall, but he's stout. Like, he's strong. And I think Arvidsson's similar, right? Like, Arvidsson's like 185, 190 pound, 5'8", 5'9" guy. But he can shoot like Eklund, right? Like, Eklund can shoot the puck. And he's a good playmaker. So it's a good comparison. I like that comparison. Weird year that's being discussed as a second overall pick, but it is what it is. All right. So the other question is, after Seattle, who will Detroit pick? Oh, let's go to Montreal, actually. Montreal's much later, obviously. So they're picking 30. Technically, it's 30th, right? It's the 31st pick, but it technically is 30th because they were in the final. So they pick very, very, very late. Some of the names that I was kind of bouncing around, one is do you think it's possible that LaRue will drop that far?
Well, it depends what I mean. Like I said, it depends. Montreal depends about what he can go. At that when you pick over 20 sport, you're looking more for not what you don't have. You're looking for what the best they have on the board at that moment over there. And I think LaRue will be out earlier. I don't think so. Right. You may be looking for the kids from Shawinigan, Bogo or whatever his last name about that one. I think will be one you have to look about that one for sure.
Is that Xavier Bourgault?
Yeah.
Yep, that's another name that came up. That makes sense.
So
So,
I think it will be something you have to look
and he's
about
a
that.
centerman, right?
So again,
Borgo is a centerman, right?
yeah.
And he's kind of like a lower end Matt Benner, maybe, right? Like he's got
He's a
energy.
center Bourgo. Yeah, it's Bourgo, Xavier Bourgo. But that at that moment, maybe Zach Dean would be there. Maybe
Dean, yeah.
Snowzil would be there. Then after that, can those kids like Pinelli is out before that. I think Pinelli could be another great pick over there if he's not out. I think Pinelli, Allison
Oh,
from Sweden is another. Then I think you could look about that one over there. And then Cheka get his stock market go higher now. So Cheka can he be there? I don't believe on Rosen. I would not touch Rosen for me. I
he's a
like the
goalie.
kids from the USHL Chicago. You talk about a Coronato over there, but I think Zamoskevich have a great year with Chicago still last season.
They
I
were a
think will
very
be good.
strong team, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then can Outman be ready over there? I don't know if Bernie would be out earlier. That would be a good pick over there. And so that's give you, and I think Nikita Sheprikov will be like 25, will be out. So
Yeah, I think he'll be gone by then. It sounds like he's moving up. I wouldn't be surprised to see an Adu Radi drop that far. And if he drops that far, I don't know if anybody's going to take him to the second round.
one I will think I'm curious to see me is really Sasha Pastuv. Um, I think is the one they would maybe drop more. They put him very high, but I
Hmm.
think Pastuv would be someone that can drop more lower at 20, 28, 29, 30.
Yeah, and so people can kind of see some of the players that we're talking about, I'll post this up. Um, yeah, so some of the players we're discussing, for example, you mentioned Francesco Pinelli. He's actually, I think, a GTHL player, had to play in Slovakia this year because there was no OHL. Stankoven would be interesting. He's a smaller, talented player. I really like him, but he is 5'8". LaRue, I have a feeling he'll go higher in the draft. He reminds me of the player that Washington picked the last year. What was his name? The one that had the concussion injury. I'm blanking on the name. You were mentioning Borgo. I think Borgo is very similar to a Matt Benier, maybe not as high end, but he's kind of like a puck pursuit centerman and he can contribute a little bit offensively. You mentioned Sam Moskovich. Can you hear me? I think my computer's freezing up here. Oh no. Can you hear me, Pierre?
Yep.
Okay. Um, yeah, Maki Samoskevich played for Chicago, and that's who you were talking about. It's interesting. There's a lot of like smaller guys, eh? Like in the sense, there's not like giants here. 5'8", 5'11", 5'11". You mentioned Sasha Paskovich. He played in the U.S. development program. He's a winger. I don't know Sean Behrens. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with him? He's a left defenseman. He's very
Yeah, he's the
small.
5'9", I believe, something like that.
I'm trying to think. Man, if you're going to go that way, why? Montreal has a history, Pierre, of picking Everett Silvertips. And I don't know if that'll continue because our director of player personnel has changed, and it was formerly Alvin Backus, who was a scout with Montreal for 7 years. And that isn't the only connection, but they've picked Gianni Fairbrother, they've picked Noah Juleson. If you're at 30 for Montreal and you're looking at a Sean Behrens, I don't know why they wouldn't go for an Olin Zellweger. Like to me, Zellweger showed at the under 18s, he's as good as Brant Clark. He's just not 6'1".
Well, the Sean Behrens is like, he is a defenseman, right? He's about 5'10". I think to compare him to Tony Crook. That's the kind of player he is.
Well, and that's why I bring up our defenseman Olin Zellweger. Like if Montreal's picking that late and you want a high hockey IQ smaller defenseman, I would definitely go Olin over Sean, but that's just me. I'm a little biased. And then you mentioned Zach Dean, who also played for Gatineau in the Q. So there's some interesting options there. I think we're going to find this is a decent draft later in the rounds. There's going to be some gems there that'll end up being NHLers. They may not be stars or impact players, but they will definitely be able to contribute. Jarmo, are you familiar with these players from Finland? Vegas might draft. Adu Radi, I think it was rated very, very high, Adam, for a while. And I'd be curious to see. Yeah, he's saying, I know the names, but I don't have any extra info to say. Adurati, I think, is just not a fancy player. Like, he's big and he's got good skill set, but I think people were expecting a franchise centerman. And maybe that's the worst thing about him. He's not. He might be more like a Joe
I
Valeno.
think people will jump early what the people thinking about him. The people put him 20, 22 right now, and I
Too
would
low.
not be surprised he go about between around 16, 15 on this area, and he would not pass. I think if he's open for Florida Panthers, the Panthers get him.
That would be a good pick, I think. I don't think he's a bad player. He reminds me a lot of a Joe Valeno or even an Anton Lundell, like a less, he's not a bad skater. He's a north south type player. He can play 200-foot game. I don't know if you're going to get a lot of offensive creativity out of him. So that probably limits his offensive upside of the pros, but it's not like he's not going to produce eventually at the pros. I think he's one of the only guys you actually got to see this year, Pierre, and he played against men. So he's like still 18. Didn't have a great World Juniors, but he wasn't terrible. Cole Caulfield did very good.
He's a two-way center, right? That's why he's really good. I think he needs to work on his shot velocity, everything like that. And I think it cannot be too much hard on him. You remind me a little bit like the Velpula players played for Detroit before for him for Reddy. What happened? He got a good success at young age, and that's what did not carry on this year in the league. Because the year prior to that, you have a 4 point 12 games, so they expect about like 15, 20 points the season. He got only 6 points this year. So and cup out. So would be really interesting about that. But again, and when he played U20, he got 7 point in 8 game over there. So I think we should not be too much. That's why I said we maybe drop earlier what the people thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pierre. That's a really good assessment. I liken it to Joe Valeno for 2 reasons. Both were physically mature at an earlier age than other players. He's a big guy, and he was big at a younger age than other players. So that makes him stand out. Joe Valeno was an exceptional player in the queue, and there was a lot of hype about him. And it probably wasn't fair because he was just bigger and mature physically at a certain age. He can really skate, and I think Adurati can skate, and he plays a 200-foot game. He's a useful guy. That doesn't necessarily translate into, a superstar. It's not McDavid. And I think that you're right. Like, someone's going to grab him at 15, and they're going to be very happy with him.
Yeah.
All right. So for Montreal, we kind of talked through those options. We'll go to the Detroit Red Wings, who pick at 6th. And I think for me, there's like a few options there. What are you kind of leaning towards at this point, especially in light of the Nedeljkovic trade?
For which team?
For the Detroit Red Wings.
Number 6?
Correct.
Again, that would depend what is up over there, but I think if a Sweden player up over there, they will get him. Now, if England is open, they will get him. That's right there. If not, can he go with Clark? Possible too. Can he go with MacTavish? Possible there. I think Edvinsson would be maybe more like 7, 8, 9, 10. But would be interesting if they can go with the big guy, defenseman, also with Edvinsson. So would be that pick could be the one way to another way. Eisenman always go with Sweden players usually. So really, if William Eglund is still up, it would not pass the try.
Yeah, you might be right. I feel like the trade for Nedeljkovic probably addresses in Steve Yzerman's mind the goaltending situation for the foreseeable future. So I originally was definitely, and I still would hope that they would go after a Wallstead, and if not, then a Casa later on. But there's too much of a gap. I think they'll both be gone by the time the Washington pick comes around. They got in the Mantha trade. So I think you're right. I think Edvinsson and Eklund would be the logical Detroit fits because that's consistent with what they've been drafting since Yzerman's been there. He's gone heavily with Swedish players, including Theodor Niederbach, Jonathan Berggren, and Lucas Raymond. And some of the D, like Albert Johansson had a phenomenal year, like phenomenal skater, really good defensive prospect now. So you're probably right. Like, that would be the logical choice. if you have the chance to draft, let's say he falls. If you have the chance to draft a Mason MacTavish at 6, he's still available. And you think about how much better he was than we all thought before, because we didn't really get to see him much until the under 18s. Do you go off of your normal course of going small Swedish talent to get a big talented centerman? They've already got Rasmussen. They got Veleno in the pipeline, but they don't really, and they have Dylan Larkin, who might be
Because
better on the wing.
for me, you don't look for what you don't have. You look for what is the best in front of you on the chart.
Okay.
So for me, I'll be that one over there for that pick over there. They don't be surprised that Johnny's trade tonight during the draft, and I wouldn't be that we gave Columbus another pick, first round pick over there. I think the Chicago Blackhawks want to trade the 12, and they will get So Columbus is going to get 4 first round pick tonight.
So that's interesting. So yeah, let's say they move Seth Jones, they get the 11th pick. There's some pretty good players there, Pierre. I think Chaz Lucius is very underrated right now because he had the injury early, which is funny because we didn't.
It would go Sellinger
or Cole Sellinger. I think Lucius is probably better than Sellinger.
I think Lucius will be out if the goaltender don't get out at 9-10.
Yeah,
I think Lucius will be out at 10.
Yeah, maybe you might be right. I mean, to me, Lucius should be a top 5-6 pick. He just, I've seen him play quite a bit at Gentry. I've seen his brother play, who's another really good player, a year younger. Phenomenal shot. He's got a thick body. He's like 6 foot. He's already got kind of like a frame that you can see. He's going to be a very solid physical player, like in the sense like you're not going to push him around. Really smart and creative, really high hockey IQ, great skater. Like there's not a lot of flaws in his game, Pierre. I think ordinarily, if anybody gets him at 10, 11, then that's going to be a steal. That'd be like, but we'll find out.
Also, Corpusalo be trade.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Why are they in such a hurry to trade one of these guys? Like they seem to flip flop who's better every other week. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of weird. I don't know why they wouldn't just keep him. It'll be interesting to see. I think there's going to be a lot of goalie movement. Where do you think the top potential destination is for him? Do you think he would go to a Chicago with Seth Jones?
No, they would not do a package like that. It's too big.
Yeah, too much. Unless they what if they got a Kevin Lankinen back as part of it?
Will be interesting, the one leaving for Seth Jones, but
right. I mean, I hope they don't include Kirby Dach. Like if they get a first, but logically on paper, you would say it would be Kirby Dach and a pick, or Kirby Dach, a pick, and maybe a defenseman. But I mean, I really think Kirby's going to be a phenomenal player, so that would be a mistake in my mind. And I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see what Jonathan Toews is able to come back to. Like, is he able to perform at a high level or not? I kind of think he will, but I guess we'll find out. Yeah. All right, Pierre. I have a hard stop, unfortunately, this morning. So are there any final things that you want to touch on? What's the plan for tonight for everybody as far as the draft?
7:30. 7:30 tonight. Yep.
Super. I'm excited. Well, are you going to do any videos throughout the day?
Yeah, we have a couple of those coming out for the NHL draft. We thought that my mock draft will be out afternoon, and that's why we are ready to rock and roll that place over there. Yep. Awesome.
Thank you for everyone that joined us this morning. Jen and Raphael and Adam and Yarmo and Stefan. We had Caden joined us, and we had Kaylee joined us, and we had, I think I mentioned Raphael already. Eagle Fang joined us. Michael Rosenblatt. We had a lot of people this morning. And of course, our good friend who's always here first, Nicola.
Yeah, so it's very important to click on the likes and subscribe to the show. I think something we didn't mention at all, Michael, but I think it's very, very important to leave the comments, and also always click on the likes every time we have a show. And also, of course, if you are new, I think you have 3 new people today you did not mention, but I think
Oh, really? I thought I mentioned
about
it.
this. Yeah. Raphael. We have
I mentioned
also
Raphael several times. I mentioned
Colleen or whatever it is was
Kelly.
you.
I mentioned Kelly.
Yeah.
Kimberly
So
was here, by the way. And I mentioned Caden. We had Caden.
okay.
And then, of course, Bud the Monkey was here.
Yep.
Yep, I think I mentioned everybody. Eagle Fang, of course. Yarmo, of course. Stefan, our friend from Sweden. Our friend from Finland, which is Yarmo. And, of course, we did mention Raphael. Is there anyone else? I don't think so. Kaylee said they're going to Kingsburg, New Jersey. So I don't know what's in Kingsburg. All right. I think we've said hi to everyone. I really appreciate everyone joining us. Make sure you hit like and try to invite a friend a week. It would be great. We want to keep growing this channel.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.